I'm just going to go through all the elements in this area that have to do with bones and structure. If we come up to the lower border of C7, then we've got governor vessel 14, Dajwe. And Dajwe means the great hammer, right? Which again relates to this idea of forging and shaping something physically, right? If we come up to the posterior border of the thyroid gland, we've got the 4 little parathyroid glands that sit in a kind of square formation on the back, on the posterior border of the thyroid. And the parathyroid glands, you know, have intimately connected with parathyroid hormone, and then the thyroid itself is intimately connected with calcitonin, and the interrelationship between the calcitonin and the parathyroid hormone has a lot to do with how we lay down new bone and reshape old bone, and just the whole kind of process of how we deal with bones. So there's something very structural about this area here, in the same way that there's something very structural about the sacrum. Like the spiritual energy that sits at the level of the sacrum has a lot to do with the physical housing of the body, the sense of the foundation and the physical structure of the body. And you see this recapitulation of that up here in many, many of the points and zones up here. I think there's another place where that is shown up here in terms of points, but I'm not remembering it right now. So anyway, in her it all feels fairly clear, actually. You know, I'm not feeling a lot of imbalance there. So she's tight right here, though, and this is small intestine channel, right? So I'm coming to small intestine 14, small intestine 13, small intestine 14, small intestine 15, and definitely I've got nodules on both small intestine 14s, which, because of the heart history that we just elucidated, is interesting to me, right? Because, yeah. But it could also just be because she's a human. You know, it's very you've got your levator scapula there, and it's very, very structural to just kind of staying vertical in gravity. But I'm also suspecting that it might be a there's a little bit of, feels like it's a headache thing to me, a little bit. Yeah. Huh. Like there's some strain for her just keeping her head upright. There's some sort of headache strain, but that's just, I'm just kind of, that's an intuitive feeling I'm getting. So now I'm going to keep going down the spine. So if you come to small intestine 13, you go straight across, you should come to T2. So T2 is Fengmen, the wind gate, and now we're starting to get into what, you know, Kiko calls the oxygenation zone. We're looking at T2, and then we can go outside to Fufen, gallbladder 41, and this area along the inner border of the scapula is very much having to do with oxygenation in the body. And so I'm just going to go down, I'm probably at the level of 42 right now, which is the gateway of the pore, connected to the lung, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to look at the lung, bladder 13, and I'm just feeling for any obvious physical blockages or any tremendous weakness, right? It's easiest to palpate for a lump or a nodule or something like that. It's a little harder to be sensitive to when there's nothing there, when you just sink in and it's like, oh, there's nothing there. The flesh is kind of almost indented. But that's also often a sign of a deficiency in the zang or the fu organ. So continuing down the spine, and now I'm at the level of pericardium, or at least Zhuiyin Shu, and indeed, it is a little bit deficient feeling. Like, can you see that, like, in there? That it's almost like, huh, I'm just sinking in there. And I'm also noticing that we're getting an increase in freckles, right? So sometimes you're going to find freckles and spots and moles and things, definitely signposts to stuff. And when we get down to T5, bladder 15, there's a very distinct large freckle. And this large freckle actually is almost exactly on governor vessel 11, Shen Dao, at the lower border of T5. And in fact, her T5 feels a little indented. Like actually, the actual vertebra feels too low. Even the protruding spinous process feels a little too low. So that's kind of, I'm just like, because I'm all excited about that heart stuff now. So that's like interesting to me. Yeah. So might want to do some work with that. Okay, so continuing on down, now I'm getting to the level of T6 and the du shu, right? This is the controlling point of the du. This is where I would say you get the first energy of the kidney as it's coming up to feed into the heart, right? And it actually feels okay to me. It doesn't feel too bad. There's definitely some deficiency through the heart zone. And then also I want to go look at Gao Huang Shu at the level of T4, just to see, because Gao Huang Shu shows chronic illness tendencies, especially, for example, tuberculosis or lymphatic stagnations. The ancient Chinese were adamant that Gao Huang Shu could cure anything with enough moxa. There's different recipes, 100 moxicons and 300 moxicons and so on. A friend of mine, an acupuncturist in Los Angeles, had a team of acupuncturists moxa his Gao Huang Shu points with 300 cones of moxa in 12 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
For a particular reason, or?
He's an interesting man. He's very, very committed to researching immortality at a very deep level. He's one of the most intense spiritual practitioners I know. Actually, he's moved to Hawaii now. And he said that he felt like he was flying for 3 weeks after that treatment. Interesting.
Right.
But anyway, I think her Gao Huang Shu has a little bit of stuff on it. So it suggests to me a little lymphatic stagnation.
That's pretty
Just
sore.
It is sore, isn't it? Yeah, and you could, I don't know if you can see this, but I'm hitting a nodule here.
Yeah.
Like nodule. And this is the first real nodule I found in her back shoe point system, because the heart one was a deficiency. Sorry, this hurts, doesn't it? Yeah, excuse me. So at this point, I might use other oils, I might use massage, I might start needling it. Let's talk about needling a little bit. What I like to do with needling the back is I like to put the needles fairly close to the skin, like just at a 10 or 15 degree angle, pointing down the channel. And that's a Japanese technique that I just learned when I was studying with Holly Guzman, and I like it. I think it's a good technique. Works for me. So mostly I'm going to go down the channel. But remember we talked about how the Huatou Jiaji line could be sort of the Jing level and the nervous system level, and the inner back shoe line of the shoe points is more like the Qi level and the transformations of Qi. Remember how the Neijing says in the 8th chapter of the Su Wen that the bladder is responsible for the transformations of Qi. But then you've got the outer bladder line that represents more the Shen body. So another way to work, which is actually commonly done in China, is to go from the outer bladder line towards the inner bladder line, which from the point of view of that understanding of moving the intelligence of the organ from the Shen realm in towards the Qi body, that makes very good sense. So I've started doing it more in the last year, because I've just started thinking about the logic of it more. Though, to be honest with you, I tend to prefer the Japanese method. The Japanese method of just going down the channel is really good for blockages. Like actually you've got a lump, a nodule, a tight spasming muscle, and you know how so often people get these very tight spasming muscles over the liver, right? Especially on the right side. They'll get these really intense spasm muscles, and it's very easy to reduce that. It's not even very painful at all with these very sort of light needle pointing downwards. So I like to do that. But if you have a deficiency, or you want to bring in a sense of like, oh, we need to increase the intelligence of this organ, coming in from the outside makes good sense.